You look at these videos from World Star or whatever on social media of black people fighting on planes. And, and I don't know, I mean, you're going to pretend this doesn't exist, like these videos of black people fighting everywhere at Disney World, at the airport,
Everybody
at
fights.
restaurants. What's that?
Everybody fights everywhere.
Not like that. Not,
I
do
just
you,
seen
do
a
you,
white hit somebody, bam, in the back of the head on a plane.
Yeah, come on, Nick.
It happens
There,
everywhere.
yeah, it's not to say that it's not to
wait a
say
minute.
that
It's
black
not.
people
It's
are the
not
only
just.
people.
It's not just black
Okay.
people. Everybody fights everywhere.
So you're into. I mean, listen.
It's not no denial. It's the truth.
It is denial. It is denial. To
So
say
you're
that
saying
that's
only,
not like
so
a
you're
black
saying only
phenomenon.
black people fight at Disneyland and fight in airports and airlines.
I'm saying that
You a
when I go on
statistics guy,
social,
you with the truth. Not what you see on social media. Where's the facts? I can show you videos right now where white people, black people, Mexican people, Asian people, everybody's fighting everywhere.
yeah,
It really,
okay. I know everybody fights, but I'm just saying what I
so
see on social media.
Why single out?
It happens
black
more
people?
with black people. It happens way more with black people.
See, I came up to the same conclusion before I even knew Nick when they were talking about the Stop Asian Hate Crimes in New York City. And then I talked to every single Asian person. And like I went to these protests and it made me really upset. I watched all the videos and the uncomfortable truth was Asians were afraid to talk about how most of the attacks, I would say 90% of them were black people because it's a protected class. You don't want to come off racist. And so they lumped it in and they use the crime statistics, which is hate crime. And hate crime is anything. If you say the word, use a racial slur against an Asian person, that's a hate crime. But the Stop Asian Hate Attacks was like when an old Asian lady gets pushed over into the train tracks or an old Asian lady gets punched in the head 40 times. And if you look at what race is doing that, it was black people. And the reason, whatever justification you want to make for it, overall in New York City, there's more bums, there's more homeless people, there's more poor people that are black than other races. And so that's why poor people commit crimes more often.
Again, like he's not wrong. Like we're 14% of the population, and we're responsible for 50% of the violent crimes. So he's not wrong. Like we commit violent crimes more than any other race. But I guess where AD point is simply just fighting at Disney World or at an airport. How do you just attribute that to black people?
Well, and this is where tone matters. When I say I want to chop people's hands off, what I said was, you think about airplanes and airport security and it's TSA and everything because of what, Al-Qaeda, 9/11. I said, well, and this is explaining the joke kind of defeats the point of it. But I said, well, I'd rather have the Taliban run the airlines and cut off the hands of all the black people fighting on the airplanes and put the flight attendants in burqas than have what we have now, the current TSA regime, where you're going to have black people fighting on the plane and then a male flight attendant in high heels is going to go run and break it up. It wasn't an assertion of fact of like, well, we looked at the data and black people are fighting on airplanes more than anybody, although I presume that's true. I haven't done the research, but I presume that's true. And so it's a joke. And the point is, AD, and I'm a little bit disappointed. If you can't say, like, you know what I'm talking about, if you're going to take umbrage at the fact that I say black people are fighting at the airport in Disneyland and say, well, white people fight too, like, you don't know what I'm talking about. That's just like either dishonest or delusional. I mean, I'm just telling it to you straight up. To say that makes me a racist because I have fucking eyeballs.
Oh, I didn't call,
and I see what people say
I didn't call you
Twitter.
anything. I'm just saying it's wrong.
Well, you said it was white supremacists. See, both of the instances that you guys brought up were kind of jokes.
You didn't hear white
taken out of
supremacists
context.
come out of my mouth for any
No, that was the question. My question was, can you name something that makes Nick a white supremacist? And both of you brought up jokes that, like, out of context, and the way you're saying it sounds bad, but that's what social media does now. You take things out of context to position somebody in a bad way.
I believe that 100%. You're right.
Right. So, and I think that kind of proves what you just brought up. But like, what belief has Nick said that makes you think that he's a racist or a white supremacist?
With the question though, so isn't like again, I may be like severely misinformed. Isn't a white supremacist just like somebody who thinks that white folks are supreme, right?
Yeah.
To the other races. Well, Nick, like, don't you think that white folks are supreme?
No, and I answered that earlier. And the thing is about so-called white supremacy is it has to be a materialist worldview. You can, in my opinion, well, actually, that's not totally true. But as far as white people go, for the most part, you really have to not believe in the soul and believe in God to be a white supremacist. You can't be a Christian. You can't be, which is what most religious white people are. You can't be a Christian and say that white people are better than other people, because Christianity is a universal religion. It says in the Bible, that neither Gentile nor Jew. Now, people take that to mean like, oh, that means everybody's equal all the time or something. But it means that we're all Christian. We all have a brotherhood in Christ, and we are all equal before God in terms of our soul. for you to say that white people as a race are better than other people, it's like, well, in what sense? Then you'd have to measure it out and attribute supreme value to a particular thing and say, well, if white people are better at something than another group of people, that makes them better as a holistic thing. And that, again, that you have to be non-religious to view it that way. So white supremacy is incompatible with being a Christian. And I'm Catholic. I am Christian. So
yeah. Now a better question is, what do you think that white folks are better at, than I guess any other race?
Better at than any other race? Yeah. Well, I would say that every race has their strength. I would say the white people are very good at literature and architecture and philosophy and
basically everything.
Well,
no,
I mean,
lots of things. He didn't talk about dance. He didn't talk about culture. He didn't talk about art. He didn't talk about creativity. He talked about pattern recognition.
So you think that the soul of a black person is to be like a great artist or dancer or what?
Basketball player, football
Well,
player?
no, now you're talking about soul. I think that, yeah, I mean, black people are great athletes and they're great artists. And that's not to say that black people can't be other things or do other things, but we're talking about the strengths
in general. And yeah, I see that this is, I think I just saw the hypocrisy here. See, if we asked AD and your name is Josh.
No, that's Flacco. But you can call him Josh.
Well, if we asked Flacco and AD, if we asked you, like, what do you think black people are better at than white people? You would both say dancing, music, basketball, and probably make fun of white people for being awkward. And nobody would get mad. Nobody would get mad at that. Everybody would accept that as a universal truth, that in general, black people are better at music. And then Nick says an honest answer, better at innovation, better at architecture. And then it's like, oh, well, so black people can't do it, right? See, you get offended when Nick is truthful about the white race, but you can be truthful about other races and then nobody blinks an eye.
Hey, I have a question though, right? So, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No. So when Nick says that white folks are better at innovation, what did that mean?
Well, here's a good example. Asians, if you look at IQ, we talked about IQ earlier. Asians actually outperform whites dramatically on IQ tests and on math tests. And if you look at some of these tests, standardized tests before university. So if you were to say strictly by IQ and by certain tests, you would say actually that Asians are smarter. Now, would you call me that? Because I say that, would you call me an Asian supremacist? Would you say that I think that Asians are better than everybody because they have a higher IQ in terms of this metric? When I say whites are more innovative, it's because although Asians have very high IQ and are clearly predisposed to being good at math, I know that's like a stereotype, but it's based on fact. They outperform every other group in math. They're not as innovative. And that has a lot to do with their culture. That has a lot to do with their history. And of course, history and culture are, in fact, bound up with genetics. Behavior is bound up with genetics. We say things like the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. What does that mean? Children are like their parents. And there's a question about, is that nature? Is that nurture? It has a great deal to do with nature, more so than many people care to admit. And the point is, so Asians, although you could say in one sense they're smarter, you could better than other groups, they're maybe not as innovative. That's why they steal American technology. That's why they struggle to do a lot of things the Americans do. And so the point is, and I get back to the previous point, all human beings, I believe, have inherent dignity, and they have a soul, and they have a brotherhood and universality and equality before God. But that does not change the fact that there are inequalities between peoples and groups on various different things. But would you say that because blacks are better athletes, that they're better, they're the best race? Would you say that because Asians are the best at math, that they're the best race? Or because, whites have the finest literature, that they're the best? Who's to say? Those are all material things. Those are all based on, material conditions. If you have a religious view, then we're not just material, we have souls. And so we should be afforded rights and respect and dignity based on the fact that we're all human beings.
All right, people, we just hit 300,000 subscribers. We're trying to hit 400,000 subscribers. So that little red button, tap it, tap in. We appreciate y'all.